Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to You've Championed Yourself. Who are you? I'm Chris Ferguson, your host, and it's always been a dream of mine to showcase people who have taken their dreams, their ideas, and turned them into their reality. As they reach beyond their personal struggles, their pains, or traumas, where so many people give up, these people walk through their obstacles and their challenges, not knowing where it was going to take them. They trusted themselves enough not to give up, to do the follow through in their personal life, their career, and in relationships. These are the type of people I call champions. Today, I have an amazing lady here. I met her at Shasta. It was one of the most rewarding experiences I've had, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But I'd like to introduce you to Wendy Napolitano. She is amazing. Let me just say she's amazing. Let's just get her on stage and let's just get this whole conversation going. Hang on one second. Hello, hello, hello. How are you?
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here, and it's a pleasure to be able to meet you and also to speak with your followers. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So everybody knows that there was a spiritual retreat that Wendy was holding in Shasta, California. And I just happened to find out about it through a second party. And they said, oh, you might want to go to this. And it was like, okay. So I said to my husband, I said, hey, you want to go to Shasta? He's like, where's that? And I said, California. He goes, okay, let's do it. So he was there with me the whole weekend, but he was working on his business because he's a neuro-linguistic programmer, and he's a trainer of trainers. And
Oh, wow.
so the fact is he's been creating programs. So he used the quiet time at Shasta, plus the energy of manifestation, because Shasta is known as the manifestation vortex. And it's also, I don't know if you know, but it's the root chakra of the planet. And most people are not aware of that.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. I've been on my journey from a young age, and we were talking about it just a few minutes ago, but off camera. But so I'll just readdress it just a smidgen. So I've had metaphysical things happen to me since I was a child. When I was 6 years old, I had taken my father's phenobarbital and OD'd on it. My mom took me to the hospital. I was completely passed out, and I was, a smidgen to dying. I hadn't actually died, but I definitely overdosed on it. So, but they had me in the hospital, and instead of pumping my stomach, they said, oh, just take her home and let her sleep it off. Well, years and years later, of course, in my journey, as it's gone throughout the years, what I found out is that I've become a merger. So some people, you may have heard of walk-ins, where the person dies and then the next soul steps in. So instead of them having another soul step in, my soul stayed, but then I merged with another soul, and that was a Pleiadian. And so this Pleiadian, green Pleiadian, he has only just recently in this last year made himself known to me. So the manifestations are like happening faster and faster. It's really crazy. But anyway, so when I was a child, my first real experience, so that happened when I was 6. When I was 7, my first experience was I heard somebody audibly, so clear audience, heard somebody say to me, where is your brother? And it was very loud and demanding. And it came with this big, like, not fear, but like, oh my God, I need to find him. And so I was asking my mom, hey, where's my brother? And it was a long search. Nonetheless, I found him about an hour and a half later. He was in a little wooden box, and the box they were playing hide and seek, and he's a year and a half younger than me. So if I was 7 at the time, a year and a half younger. So the lock had a D-lock, and so the latch came down. See if I can get it on camera, like this. And it was, of course, it had to be lifted up. So when he tried to open it up, he was stuck because of the bottom part here, the latch. So it had to be lifted up. So anyway, I kept calling for him like a little dog, where are you? Where are you? Finally, I hear over here. I find him. I lift it up, and he was in a little fetal position, looked over at me and said, I've been praying. And so that was that was my very first experience with the metaphysical. And then from there forward, I always had like precognitive dreams. I didn't understand a lot of it, but what it ended up doing for me is, from a very young age, I always knew there was a spirit beyond me, a spirit beyond understanding. There was something more than the Bible, because my experience wasn't talked about in the Bible, really. So it was kind of one of those things, you know, being raised Christian, where you kind of have to say, okay, am I Christian? Do I still have my beliefs? And it's kind of like, I believe in God, and there's a lot of, you know, yes, there was a Jesus. And so there's a, you know, there's a lot of that ends up coming into play, where you have to like kind of like step by step check mark them off. And as you're check marking them off, you're asking questions along the way. So I was always interested in, you know, metaphysical healing and QHHT and, you know, all of that stuff. So I ended up with my own personal experience going through needing a healing. And one year it was a hysteroscopy DNC. And so I had to have that done. And then it was 2 years later, I had to have a second one. And so I said to myself, look, I know that there's more. Like, why can't I self-heal? Like, what am I doing that I'm like not stepping into self-healing? And that's where my journey really began. And so that was in 2017. And then, of course, as I've really dove into learning more about the spirit world, you know, angels and guides and all of that good stuff, finding out more about myself, my past lives, you know, doing QHHT. Then that's when I found out I'm a healer. And so when I found out I was a healer, I started on my journey working with crystal skulls. And so if you're ever out on my YouTube page, it's Archangel Raziel with her crystal skulls, because originally when I started this journey, they said, you will be working with crystal skulls and they will be helping you with your healing. And so, of course, and then they said, we're activating and healing your crystalline DNA. And at that time, I had never heard that term before. I had no idea what they were talking about, but it was coming out of my voice. I was the one having this conversation, not somebody else telling me. And so I was like, whoa, what am I talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about. And so that's really where, you know, where the beginning of this journey began. And so then it expanded into doing healing services, as I kept saying, well, I'm a healer, I'm a healer, I'm a healer. And so then I started working with people to do healing. And the next thing you know, I'm doing sessions like what, you know, Alba Weinman does, where, you know, you'll see her, you know, take a client and then she goes through hypnosis. And I said, my team has always said that I found the back door past hypnosis. So I kind of skip past all of those layers and just get right to talking to the higher self and any other beings that are, you know, for the highest and best good. Usually their guides will come through, their ancestors will come through. Sometimes, you know, might be, you know, mom, dad, or somebody who's passed. I mean, you just never know. The sessions are all unique and different. And so that's where my journey began. But in 2019, I went to the Crystal Skull Unification Conference, and that's where I met a lot of my first tribe, if you will, that group that you originate with and you connect with, and you start to have these metaphysical discussions about, you know, what is more. And so it was at that point where I was having a conversation with Gina Cock at the time, and she does a lot of this same work, only it's unique and different because we're all unique and different individuals. But she ended up telling me, I said, you know, I hear that we're going to be doing that one day. We were talking about the speakers. I said, I hear that we're going to be doing that one day, because I've always had my clear knowing. That's always been my strongest out of like all of my abilities that comes to me. And I said, I see that we're going to be up there one day. And she goes, oh no, I could really see you up there. You're going to be great. You're going to be a great communicator. You're going to be on stage, you know, and you're going to be having these conversations. And I said, no, honey. I said, I see you being up there too. It's not just going to be me. And she's like, no. I'm just like, I'm not, you know, she wasn't at that point yet. And
Right.
so, you know, rush forward 2 years. And then here we had just had this Mount Shasta event. So I started hearing I was going to get a convention, a retreat together, and I didn't know where it was going to start. And then so this was like, you know, so last year in November. And so they kept telling me September, it's going to be September. And I was like, oh, okay. And then with COVID and everything happening, I was just like, oh, I don't know that we're going to be able to do this. And then they're like, no, you're still going to have it only. And so I thought they were telling me it's going to be the following September. I'm like, oh, I got plenty of time, and talk to people, talk it up. I'll get it figured out. And then they said, it's this year, September. And I was like, but it's only February. So my little dog running back here making noise. But I was like, it's only February. How am I going to pull this together? And so I reached out to a few people. And so it was kind of like, You know, I felt like I was in the movie for a minute. I volunteer. And so people would come, and then the energies were so chaotic leading up to Mount Shasta, to the actual date of us being there. Then they had fires there all summer long that were just pretty incredible. And so, you know, we kept watching the weather, staying in touch with like the local communities, and like seeing what was happening as far as how, you know, how is it going to go. And then also we had behind the scenes activities happening too. And I kept, you know, I kept working with a friend that I channel with, and it was like, so how do we know that it's all gonna work out? Because I said I keep losing people, and then somebody would leave, and then somebody would come, and then somebody else would leave, and then somebody else would come. And so my speakers were like, I felt like I was on like this weird spinning wheel, like I was like a hamster in a cage, and it was like, what is happening with my speakers? And then at the last minute, a group came. It was the Aztec dancers and singers performing, and they were incredible to be a part of that group, to have them, you know, want to come. But they heard the call. They heard the call, that call to the Lemurian aspect of themselves. And so certainly everybody who was there has some kind of a past life or a history with Lemuria. And whether it goes back further than that, possibly, more than likely, because many of us are old souls. But, you know, it's the interesting thing about this whole journey is that you discover along the way that I can remember as a child thinking, is there really reincarnation? Like, what does that mean? And how do they reincarnate? And, you know, how does that all work out? And so I just wasn't sure. But then the more you read, the more you discover, the more I was doing healing sessions for people. That's where I ended up finding that, okay, this is my niche. Like, I really am a healer, and I help people remove their blocks to be able to step into the next, let's call it, the way I can best say is that we're like a video game. You get to a point, and then you up level. And you get to a point, and then you up level, and you get to a point, and you up level. And some people will talk about, oh, my next step, and then my next step. And some other people will say, oh, they give it to you, like your guides and angels will give it to you as breadcrumbs. You know, oh, I got this, and then I had to wait a while, and then I got this, and I had to wait a while, and then I got this, or then I got this and this back to back. And so that's how it was with Shasta. So I would love to hear, Chris, your experience. You were in Shasta, because there's a lot of energy right now. I'm getting super heated just talking about this stuff. So
when I went to Shasta, there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of chaos. There was a lot of different things, because I speak publicly.
yes.
And so things were different. And being in law enforcement, when things don't seem to go right, you kind of question everything.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, okay, but I've lived this dual life. I've been a practicing shamanic healer for 45 years. And mine was from my childhood. And I did have 3 near-death experiences. In 2012, I had 2 blood clots, 1 in each lung. And most people don't survive one.
Don't survive.
Yeah. So I'm very blessed.
That was the year the big energies came in, was 2012. They awoke me. I just didn't know it. I found out later that that's when it happened, but I remember the experience. I was in South Dakota, and I heard drumming. I was standing over a bridge over a lake that I was like, oh my God, we got to go over there. Let's go. Let's check out that campground. You know, we were driving. I said, let's go. So we went over there to check it out, and my husband got a call. And so I was just kind of wandering, looking next to the lake, wandering across the water. And when I got across the water, all of a sudden I could hear this drumming, and like a powwow, you know, it was like a powwow. And I listened to it for about 10, 15 minutes, and then it stopped. And I was like, wow, that was really awesome. Went back by my husband, who had his call had finished. He was just kind of checking out the lake. And I go, wow, wasn't that amazing? Like that drumming, like it just echoed across the whole lake. And he looked at me with like kind of a weird look, and he goes, what are you talking about? He didn't hear it. And then this year we went to Serpent Mound. Guess who had the same exact experience? I didn't hear it. He heard it. He got his drumming. He got his awakening this year. So I'm like, you're on the road. So anyway, so you had blood clots in your lungs in 2012.
Right.
And then
in 2012. So I didn't know whether I was going to live or die. And so the shock of all of that. And so knowing, and because I had my first near-death experience was at 4. I got under the kitchen sink. I drank this pink liquid, which was liquid Drano. And they made it pink. And I thought it was okay. It looks like lemonade.
Right?
It's lemonade. Why not drink it? Well, my body I was only 35 pounds, and the toxicity overcame my body. So I've been this intuitive. I flatlined. I was up at the ceiling. I'm looking down. I literally just wrote an article for a compilation book that's coming out in January on an experience, but I had to get a hold of Arturo Cushman.
Oh yeah. Yes, yes.
And I sent him a copy of it and asked him not to share it, but it's because of my spirit guide who carried me through everything, and that was Geronimo.
Oh, beautiful.
And
That's my
so,
ancestor.
yeah, I did not know that Arthur knows Geronimo's great grandson and
Yeah,
their
they're my
friend.
relative. Isn't that crazy? Through my upline ancestry, I'm related to Geronimo. That's the story through my mother's side of the family, nonetheless. But I have Mayan background too, my ancestors, and of course, a lot of this information is you're finding out more and more as you delve into the physical. You're working with other healers. You're working with channelers. You're trying to find more information out about yourself. What are your gifts? What are your abilities? What's your mission? What's your mission? And so that's that's kind of where I'm at. So what happened with the book? So Arturo has
Well,
it.
so anyway, I sent him just a rough draft of my
Mhm.
portion of this book. And then I have another book coming out next year, and it's Living the Life of Hollow Bones.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what I've been doing for 45 years. But then I was also in law enforcement because when I was 20, my brother was killed by a drunk driver. And that
Oh yeah.
individual was never held accountable because his family was affluent in the area and was able to get him off.
I see. Yeah.
And so it
That
was,
makes
I was
sense.
all about justice, injustices. And
Yeah.
so that's what started me doing my thing. But it's real hard to be, it's all about the facts. It's all
Yeah.
about the facts.
And,
And then
and
go home and say, I'm hearing this, I'm seeing this, I'm getting this vision. I have all my five senses heightened to the point that I've been channeling Jesus Christ, the God consciousness, Isis,
oh my God,
Shiva.
sounds.
So
How come we're not channeling together? Because this sounds exactly up my road.
so the fact is that this is what I've been doing, but I didn't put myself out there because
Yeah.
I couldn't, because I had dual roles.
Right. You had your
I
dual, yeah, you had your dual life going on, and you had to still have your 3D job. And I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now too. They're pushing me to step away from it, but I kind of am like, oh, what's my family gonna say when I step away from this great paying 3D job, So
Well, I 40 years into it. So finally I was like, I started mentoring people. I have a
yeah,
membership in my group, and it's been going amazing. But when I went to Shasta, I didn't take any of my tools. I was told by my spirit guides, don't take any tools. Don't bring anything that's going to identify you as who you are and what you're
yeah,
connected to. So I literally came there in essence naked as far as tools and energy.
yes,
My spirit guides were there. And when the first night we got there, all I could hear was the drumming of the Aztecs dancers,
yes,
and I couldn't go to sleep because my heart was beating at the same rhythm as theirs.
oh
And
yeah,
then the next day when I showed up in shorts and everybody's freezing and I'm warm,
yeah, no,
they're looking at me like, you're a little crazy lady. But then they started even looking harder at me when I could do their same dances.
yeah,
And so the fact is I've done those dances before. I've done them many, many lifetimes. A friend of mine is an amazing individual. He's a Navajo healer. His name's
mm.
Garrett Duncan.
I
And
know Gary.
yes, I
That's
know
why
you
I work
did. I
with
knew
him.
you did. So anyway, the first time I met Garrett, I said, I need a reading. He says, okay. So he's looking at me and he's doing everything. And he says, you know what? You look awfully white, but for being white, you're really native.
Oh,
And I said, Garrett, and I told him about my father being Native
mhm.
American. And my great great grandmother on my father's side was Black Cherokee. So the fact is I said, well, I knew I was the United Nations. I'm just waiting for society to catch up with me.
Right. That's me too. United Nations, like the. I actually had my DNA testing done, and I was like, oh my God, I'm like a mutt of the world because I've got a smidgen of everything from Eskimo to to Iberian, to Italian, to Indian, and the whole like those Nords, the Norway and Swedish, and with
Right.
my maiden name is Castles, so
Right.
that got that Irish aspect, and then my mother's maiden name is Diaz, so I've got that aspect, and then
Right.
I have, so my ancestry is like broad and far and wide, and and so what happens with that is that the when I'm channeling, I'm getting Celtic come in, or Celtic. I never can say that correctly. And then I'm getting my ancestors, the Native Americans, want to come in. They keep bringing me like different instruments to work with, drumming and fluting, playing the flute. I shouldn't say fluting. I don't know. That just came out weird. but what I'm finding is I'm really similar to my mutt DNA, is I'm kind of a jack of all trades, where they just keep giving me, oh, okay, well, once you've mastered that, then you're going to do this. And so they keep giving me magic, kind of like my own magic, because as you discover that the fractals of yourself, you're like pieces of a spoke, and that's all now. And so I was a fractal, I should say am a fractal of Merlin. So I've got a fractal of him to tie into. I'm a fractal of a red fire dragon, Frederick. So I've got him to tie into. I'm a fractal of, an elven king. And of course, I'm finding this out by working with people like Ivan Teller and, other channelers to discover, well, tell me more about that life and how is that interrelated. And then I really literally just had, now as I'm clearing out my heart chakra more, as these energies are coming in, I just reconnected with a fractal of myself that was a Mayan, who the Spanish conquistadors had come in,
Right.
and they came in under the guise of, oh, we want to learn your ways, and then they
And
conquered
totally
them.
annihilated them.
So
Yes.
yeah, so they sliced me up through the back, and then through my shoulder. I guess I got attacked through my shoulder, and so I brought that back in. So I was literally just having this conversation. Next thing you know, I'm bawling for no reason. I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying. And then toward the end, we were doing some light language, and as I was doing light language, all of a sudden I felt this burning all the way down my shoulder and down the side of my arm. And I was like, there is like a serious burning sensation happening now, because they said, oh, we're going to be, healing. The way that the channeling message came out with light language was that we're going to be healing your past wounds. And so physically, those past wounds had a memory within the physical body that was found and then literally burned out. And that burning out sensation, I was like, ow. I mean, it wasn't like, ow, my arm's on fire, not like that, but it definitely, the burning was very noticeable. And then I think after my clear knowing, the next thing is my clear sensing. That's like my next strongest thing. But it's funny too that we were talking about, so I feel the sensations within my body, and I feel energy, and I move and work with energy. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I like to do is bending spoons, just to show that, I am physically moving these energies. And so this is a straw, see if I can get it in camera. This is a metal straw that I bent. And then this is a large serving spoon, and you can see the tight little corals, coils that are in this. And then just to show you the difference, like this is another spoon. So working with energy, right? Another spoon that I bent. But so you can see the difference in, if I get this on camera right, and the difference in the spoon size,
Right.
very, it's very, yeah, I can't get it on camera very well. It's very
You got
obvious
it.
that this is definitely a big, thick serving spoon versus a smaller. So you can't say, oh, it's, it's just metal that she can easily bend, because I can't. I can't bend it unless I'm working with energy and putting the energy into it and then melting it. So, but that's, what that helps you do is that helps you learn manifestation. And so I've been really good at manifesting. So once my team told me, hey, you're going to be doing this thing in Shasta, I was like, okay, I'm going to be doing this thing in Shasta. Like, I just need to put the pieces together. And then as soon as I asked somebody to help me get the speakers, they started coming in out of the weeds. I mean, it was like they just showed up, and I was like, oh, but the chaos. So I know that you felt the energy. I know a lot of people, because I got feedback from people, were feeling it, like the chaotic energy that was happening. And that's why we were there. That's why we were called to be in Shasta, was to try to get our hearts together, find that unity. And then from that unity, we were going to beam up the light. And that is exactly what we did while we were there. Because even though we felt like there were multiple time schedules going on, different agendas going on, which there were, and there was no from my point of view and from your point of view, how you like to do it is okay, at 9 o'clock, we're going to be here. At 10 o'clock, we're going to be here. 11 o'clock, we're going to be here. You're going to go to lunch. You're going to come back. We're going to, do this, do that. So just like walking down like what the to-dos are, check our
Right.
little boxes off. But I had gotten a message where during meditation, we were channeling and my friend was getting ready to channel and I was in the waiting stage. So my eyes were closed and I was just breathing into my heart, feeling into my heart. And then an image popped up and it was a little movie and it was like 4 reeds of grass and they were just kind of like swaying in the wind just like this. And so I was like, okay, I just saw grass reeds. Like, what does that mean to me? And so then as my friend got into channel and she actually was in Shasta with us, Susan, when she began to channel, I asked her, I said, I just saw this image. It was grass blowing. I said, I haven't had a time to like think about what that means, but can I just ask, like, what is that image for? What is my team trying to tell me? And they said, that's how they want you to go to Shasta. They want you to go with no plan, to just be like grass blowing in the wind,
Mhm.
just bend with it, go with the flow. Just, it's not going to be they kept telling me it's not going to be what you expect it to be. Just go with the flow and enjoy it. And so that's how I approached it. So I did try to keep, some schedules, going, but it was, it was pretty much however spirit wanted to run it. That's how it ran it.
But
Some
it
people would
went
be
amazing.
outside, some people would be inside.
It was amazing though that as it came together, and it was like the drumming called everybody out,
Yeah.
and that was amazing. But the one thing that was very important for me is that when we were sitting in the lodge and we were talking, and we had the different speakers that came up,
Yeah.
and meeting Marilee
Oh God, I know.
was very different for me, and for some reason our energies connected so hard that we spent the next 2 days, day and night, together. We went to dinner, we spoke,
Oh yeah.
everybody knew this is when she disappeared from you, she was hanging out with me.
Oh yeah.
And so the fact is I helped her
I
get.
was pleased. I was pleased that she had found that family feeling, that extra. You know what I'm talking about, that extra,
Sure.
when you just really connect with somebody and it's that soul calling back to you and saying, oh my God, like we have this strong connection. And yeah, so you guys were hanging out and had dinner. Yeah, I remember I was
We
kind of
were
keeping track
going.
of her.
Yeah, we were just having an awesome time. We drove and she was just wherever we went, she went. We went to several metaphysical stores, bought some blue bottles, gotten some
Oh
Shasta
yeah.
water, did the whole 9 yards, and she had an awesome time. And then when we left, she was like, okay, we had talked up until the 21st of September.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was crickets, and I couldn't figure out why, but my schedule got busy. I had several different seminars to attend. And so I didn't know anything. And then I was supposed to interview her
Oh.
on October 11th. And
Oh.
October 11th, I found out she had passed.
Passed away.
And so
Yeah.
the fact is so I was like, this is such a loss to humanity because of all the healings that she did. She was an
Oh yeah.
amazing individual. And at 72 years of age, my gosh, I hope I'm so vibrant at that point in life. But
Right.
when we went up to Shasta, she drove with you guys, but we
Yeah.
went up there and I had taken my crystals out there, and Lisa was playing the singing
Yes.
bowls. She
Mm-hmm.
couldn't keep her cape on her because the wind was blowing so hard,
Oh
and it
yeah.
was
We
like
were up
it
there.
might have been 10 degrees up there at
It
8,000
was
feet.
cold and the wind was blowing. And I was like, I don't know how you can just sit here, because I just wanted to go climb back in the car because it was cold. And she was out there. Her gong was going. She had her
Yeah,
crystals. I brought my crystal skull out there for a little bit to kind of sit out with the energy too on the mountain. So, because our crystals, they want us to work with them, and that's what they had me doing for sure.
I did the same thing with mine that I brought from Tennessee. But I sat out there when she couldn't keep herself warm. I sat out there in the sun, and I was sending her heat to keep her body core warm so that she
Oh,
could sit out there and do that. And by transferring that energy, and then her gift back to me was the music and
yes.
the harmonizing. And the one thing that you touched on, but it was actually harmonizing people's hearts and minds at Shasta.
Yes. Yeah, it
And
really.
it's making the brain one brain, and then
Mhm.
harmonizing it with the heart and being able to be harmonized with inside themselves, that they see life from a different perspective.
Right. So
And so,
and we saw a lot of that too at the lake when, when everybody came out to the lake and we were doing blessing and land healing. And they said we made such a difference to the mountain by doing that clearing at the lake, because we ended up pulling in so many different waterways when we were doing the blessings there at the end. And there was so much like light that took off this heavy dense toxicity off the land and brought it out. And then the dragons were flying over, the dragons and
mhm,
the fairies and the angels were all coming to remove this, like almost like the smoke in the air, to remove it, to clear it out, so that so that the air of earth and all the negative energy that's been trying to be released out will be let go and
mm,
cleared and brought white again, white and crystalline, because that's where our bodies are moving to, that's where Gaia is moving to. And that's the goal, right? The
mm,
5D is the goal, which means we're going to be in our crystalline age. But we had to start out with that continuity, with that unity. And that's at the lake, because you couldn't get into that water if you had, planned on getting in, and whether you wanted to be blessed or just have water poured over you, dunked or whatever. You couldn't get in that water almost without somebody else like having to hang on to you or help you or assist you coming or going, because the uneven bedding of the
right.
lake was, all you'd walk and then all of a sudden it was like a dip down, with where we were at in the water. So but everybody was just their hearts were really just coming together on Friday before we got together on Saturday and started doing the drumming, and woke up and started to, have our meetings at the lodge. And then where Marilee and I did our presentation, um, and the others, of course, as well. But even that next morning, it was like, we're supposed to be like having this talks and nobody's coming. So what's happening? Everybody's dancing and we're supposed to be inside. And so then I was like, well, I work with the weather. Maybe I should bring some of that rain back. And so bring people inside. So I literally, while I was inside waiting for the people to come in, I just was kind of like, I was like, all right, Brian, time to show up. I got to get these people inside one way or another.
Well, when
So,
driving up to Shasta, I had saw the lakes and how low they were, 60, 70 feet
oh, huge. The
below the natural level.
that pipe that
Yeah.
was near where we were at, that they
Yeah.
say that's like never out, but it's been so dry that pipe, and it ended up creating a bench for people to sit on. So it ended up being a really a magical day, just watching how everybody came together. And then Lisa again had her gong out there, so that was incredible. And then so they were really using sound frequency, heart frequency, our RX fields were
Mhm.
being cleaned. But driving into Mount Shasta, I don't know if I had this conversation or mentioned it during the talk, but driving into Shasta, I've hit about weed. So we arrived in Oregon, and then we drove from Oregon down to Shasta. Well, apparently between the two airports, I was in O'Hare International and then LAX Airport. So these two large airports. And so just in my presence, how my being works is I'm a transmuter. And so I take the negative energy and turn it into light.
Mhm.
And so and then they told me that I'm kind of like, if you can imagine me like a circuit board, I'm kind of like Lily Tomlin's, one ringy dingy and all the plugs and outlets. Like
The
that's
old
like
the
physically,
old dashboard phones
yeah, that's
connector
physically how
operator.
I am. I'm like plugged into all these different locations because I do grid work. And so I can't understand all of that. I just, they're like, oh, you've got plenty of nodes. And I'm like, well, I'm getting a lot of downloads. They're like, oh, you're fine. You're built for that. And I was like, oh, okay. Thanks for letting me know.
Exactly.
What I'm built
Exactly.
for. So, but I on the drive in. So I'm driving in about 20 minutes outside of Shasta. When we actually got to Shasta Inn, I started like usually when I'm moving energy, like if I'm like say if I'm channeling or whatever, or I'm working with somebody and I'm clearing with them, I have a lot of like it's almost like yawning. I'll be like, and then my eyes start to close, and but so. I started yawning and then I wouldn't stop. And then Marilee goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." I said, I'm clearing. I said, "I don't know what I'm clearing." I said, "But I'm clearing energies." And then, and I couldn't catch my breath because it was yawn, escape, yawn, escape. My eyes kept trying to shut. I'm trying to drive. My eyes are like this. I'm like, stay open eyes. In between my yawning. I mean, I was a smidgen from like, I need to pull over. Like I cannot drive and continue to do this. And it was almost like just as soon as that thought came into my head, and then I'd stop going from like deep breathing to like a deep breath and then release. And then I'd get a few breaths and then another deep breath and then I release. And then a minute would pass and then another deep breath and then a release. And I was like, what the heck is happening? So, but of course, afterwards, I was like, all right, this is crazy. So then Shasta happened. Everything was amazing and great. And then being up at Pluto's Cave, then at the end, we had an experience where actually it's now my Facebook photo where I'm standing with my hands up, one up and one out. And there's this bright light shining on me from nowhere. And come to find out that it was the Arcturians who wanted to beam a light on me, after asking questions. And so I was like, okay, who is this? Who is this? I was trying to connect. I'm like, I think it's the Arcturians. But then, working with the channeler, I said, okay, who was that? And they said, oh yeah, that was the Arcturians. They just wanted you to know that, that they're here. And they wanted you to have a visible, acknowledgement that yes, the work that you're doing and these messages that you're getting are real. And were you at Pluto's Cave?
I was there before you. In fact, we went into the wrong cave, the first one. I took a picture and there's a skull in the ceiling of that cave. Wow. and I posted this on my Facebook. And then we went into the right Pluto's Cave. And we started our way down there and my phone light wouldn't work. I didn't have a flashlight. I figured I would use the picture part of it, but it wouldn't give you depth perception. So I'm trying to use this. I have a walking stick and we're going through Pluto's Cave. And at some points, there was a couple times I almost broke my ankle twice because the lava rock, and the step you couldn't see was pitch black. So I just started, once we got down there, I was with a group of people that were just chatty Cathys. They just wanted to chit chat and talk and all kinds of craziness. They were going to go. Well, they could have if they just quieted themselves. So one lady decided to turn back and she goes, I'm just going to find a quiet place. And I said, okay, I'll look for you on my way out. And so I got back to the third of the 4 caves.
Gotcha.
And all of a sudden I told Terry's son, Jacob.
I'm not sure what his name is. I'm sorry.
Right. And so anyway, I told him, I said, I'm going to head back. So as I'm heading back, I start speaking my light language. I start singing. And all of a sudden out of the side, this lady that was sitting there, and I didn't see her in the dark. She says, oh my God, I see your tribe following you out of here. And I said, yes.
Was that Gina?
I think
short hair?
I don't think she had shorter hair. It was kind of like blondish, dirty blonde. It was about down to here. Very nice, very nice lady. And she says, I'm glad you came back because you could still hear them the whole time. So I was like, no. And as I'm leaving cave 3, there's a natural opening above me. And then you go into cave 2. Yeah. Well, I'm just exiting cave 3 and stepping into that opening. And I look up and here comes the white owl. It comes right above me and goes out the opening, which I was told by Arturo that it was the gatekeeper of Pluto's Cave, that it either keeps you out or it honors you for coming in. Yeah. And the fact is that what he didn't know is that back probably 30 years ago, I was practicing owl medicine.
Oh, wow.
And practice it. And it was part of my life. I mean, I had figurines, I had everything. But the one thing
that's my twin flame with the owls. And the owls are only just now starting to show up for me. So, but she's always.
Well, I had purchased this probably 35 years ago. I don't know where it was in my house, but when I got back from Shasta.
Oh, yeah.
If you can see it. It is a female shaman with the
I see it with the owl hat. Yep.
And so it was on my desk here when I got home.
Oh, wow.
So I said, okay, you're coming out from wherever you were. I'm just going to stick you on my microphone here. And ever since then, when we left, let me finish with Pluto's Cave. I took pictures in the dark with no flashlight. And I didn't see any of these pictures because I'm going through this experience as I'm leaving. I walked through vortexes I ended up photographing that I did not see with my naked eye.
Oh,
I
that's how
saw
it was with the light
orbs.
on. I didn't see it with my naked eye. It showed up in the photo, but nobody could
Yes.
see it. Everybody standing
Yes.
around, nobody could see it, but it was clearly in the photo.
But see, this is the same thing with me. As I'm
Yeah,
exiting, I'm taking all these pictures in the dark. I saw a blue light up here on the left-hand side. And then the next picture, there's a vortex opening up right in front of me with the same
wow.
light. And they're the orbs. And one of the thing I've always had an issue as a child was being loved, because being abandoned at 8 and put into an orphanage,
Oh,
that's where I
yeah.
grew up. And so you had all kinds of issues. And you do your shadow work, you walk through
Right.
it, you face it, you move on. But in the Pluto's cave, I felt my ancestors hugging me. I felt the love in my heart and in my soul. And as I came out and I was saying, Arturo, I said, this was amazing. And I sat down and I showed him the pictures. And then one of the Mayans turned around and said, here, this is for you. And it was cacao leaf. And I stuck it inside my mouth just to get the healing
Right,
experience
right.
of it. And it was amazing.
Wow.
And so I had an amazing time. But one of the things that affected me the most, we were going from Pluto's cave, got on the interstate and headed back to Shasta. And it's a
Yeah,
full moon. I'm like, oh, I'm all
right,
in the element.
right,
I'm loving it. It's amazing. And I'm taking pictures, and I tried to take a picture of the moon just over this mountain, but at 70 miles an hour, I
right.
take a picture. There's a white object on the side of that mountain that's on halfway down the mountain, and it's not the moon. And I showed Lisa and Terry when we got back. I said, is that an opossum? What is that? So as I made it bigger, it was a white owl profile.
Oh, wow.
And then if
Very.
you move the owl to the side and you see this barrier, you see the galactic beings. There was 4 of them there and Sasquatch.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, I knew
so
Sasquatch was going to be there. They told me that they were going to be there. There were some goddesses that were there for us. Freya. Pardon me,
Frida,
goddess.
she's Celtic.
For
Yeah.
Freya, yeah, Celtic. And then also Pele, of course. She was like, of course I'm going to be there. So yeah, so she had her healing energy there. And then of course all the dragons and the white dragons. It was the white dragons of the north that were helping us. With bringing the snow back onto Shasta, because it had completely dissipated. And they're like, it needs it. The mountain needs it. And so the mountain was calling me before we got there. And I kept having dreams of it. It was talking to me. And I'm like, why is the mountain talking to me?
I had the same experience from Tennessee. In fact, I was going to tell you on the way to Shasta, I saw the lakes, how low they were. I started crying. And I mean, my husband's looking at me like, what's going on? I said, I don't know. I'm just shedding tears. And I've always been told by the trees where I live, if you want it to rain, you cry. And if you can get enough people feeling from their hearts and sending the love, it'll rain more. So when we got to Shasta late, I mean, it was a long flight. We went from Nashville to LA to Sacramento, and then drove 3.5 hours up to Shasta. So it was a long day. So we didn't do that Friday night we weren't there in time to do the lake or the clearing or whatever. And the person that I met up there, I knew her, but I had never met her in person. And she was briefing me on what's going on. Oh my God, there's this. Oh my God, there's that. Oh my God, there's this. And I'm like, wait, just breathe. It's all going to work out. Right. And she goes, well, there's fires. I said, it's going to work out. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. I kept checking. Trust me. I kept checking with my team the whole time. Are we okay to go? Is this going to do it? Am I going to have to cancel it? And they're like, no, it's happening. Like it is happening. It's a requirement. And they kept telling me, if you don't go to the mountain's coming to you. So I don't know exactly what that meant, but that was enough to, put fear in my heart. No, actually, I already got it planned, but that was just like after the fact. But
so I was sending energy to Shasta when she was a shadow in the background of the mountains that we were going through, and with all the love and light. And I was like, if we can get enough people here with the same intent and just send that mountain the love that it needs, because there's not enough people spreading love nowadays. It's all about confusion. It's all about hate. It's all about censorship. People are afraid to speak their piece because it's not from love, and they're offending people and they can't figure out why. It's like it's going to, it happens. So when we went up, and that Saturday when it rained, she was like, "Oh, I don't know if this is going to happen. I don't know. I'm going. It's trust me, it
Right.
is going to be fine. It is going to be fine." And it was fine.
And it was
I mean, we left at
amazing.
what, 4 o'clock to go up to they had just, the rain had put out the fires.
Yeah.
There was snow on Shasta. They had opened the gates that have been closed since December of last
Right.
year. And they're finally letting people up there. I mean, if
Yeah.
that
The day that
isn't
we're
a
going is the
sheer,
day they open the gates up to say, yeah, come on in.
it was a miracle. It was absolutely a miracle when you think of how
Oh,
the
I know.
magnitude of energy that was collectively there, the number of healers that were there that put out that
Well,
intention.
you probably had a conversation with Marilee about her working with the Akashic records.
Mhm.
So when I first said, hey, I'm asking you to help me kind of find speakers, and I just put the word out or whatever, and then I'll start working with them. And she's like, oh, okay, I'll do that. And then so the next day she called me and she said, so I just want you to know I went to the Akashic records because I wanted to know what is my role in this whole thing. Because she said, I'm not really doing the event, but I'm like helping, like behind, like she's like the wind beneath your wings kind of is what they're telling
Right.
me that I'm going to be doing. And I said, oh, that makes sense. So it wasn't really like her event, but at the same time, she was a solid mentor for me throughout the event, and and assisting me with putting names in the hat, even though, like I said, they kept kind of rotating. And even having a couple that was supposed to come out at the last minute, a week ahead of time, saying, no, we can't do it.
Right.
So but that was, like they were saying, it was all the energies that's what we were there to clear. And so as we were experiencing these mountains and these amazing miracles happening, with rain showing up, snow showing up, the mountain being open, having access to the lake, because normally they won't let you do that without like having a big group thing. But
Right.
the healing that happened with the owner at the lodge at Chest Inn, and others were getting healing that I kept hearing people saying, oh, this has been bothering me, and now I feel nothing. Like they're like, I can't even believe it. I'm like, oh, I believe it. So the healings. And
Yes.
then I did that when I did my my morning session. I did a light language activation. There were people who said they were like walking out to the mountain, and like within that day they were speaking light language. And then others who, a couple of weeks later, they're like, I don't know if I'm crazy or not, but all of a sudden, like, these crazy words and sounds are coming out of me. And they're like, and then I was like, didn't you raise your hand when you said I want to have light language activation? Because I do that for people. And
Right.
so
Right.
and so he's like, oh yeah, that's right. But taking that, so the week after we got back from Shasta, I felt amazing there. Got home, and then boom, I felt so off kilter. I felt like I was like walking sideways, like literally my whole body. Like I was like, I don't get like what I'm feeling. And then the following weekend, I had a wedding to go to in Nashville. So, and then another experience that I had, and I talked about this during my when I did my healing for the group. I had gotten all these codes that came in, and they was like zipping in a circle, and they were so fast, but I could see that they were like little like packets of data, like like an inch long, and then a centimeter between, another inch long, and then but each of them had their own codes, and they were like, and so it was all happening up here for me to see, and then I saw it like come into me. So I was like, oh, I just got all these codes. What are all these codes? And so, so what it had to do with were the new Earth energy codes getting brought to me, because that's what I do with my grid work. Is I give and I transmit these codes. I get codes and I give out codes, and so it's like this perpetual motion, I guess. But so anyway, so then went to Nashville and fell, because I mean we were partying, it was a wedding, but I was wearing my boots, and I blamed my boot heel in the sidewalk for falling, and my husband said, no, I think you had one too many beverages. but I went back on the sidewalk, and I really bashed my head really hard, and then got back to the room, slept it off, had no recollection of it whatsoever. So I mean, thank you, my team, for doing that. But then my husband reminded me of all the things that happened the prior night, and I was like, oh yeah, ow. And so so then once I got back from Nashville, so we were at the weekend in Nashville, felt fine the next day, even though my head was sore, felt fine, went to a wedding, it was all great and fine. Finished out the weekend, traveled home, and then once I got back home, I still was having that like weird off kilter feeling. And so I was like, oh man, like what is happening with that? And so then usually Monday nights we'll get with my channeling group. And so I was like, okay, somebody like, what happened? Why did I have to bash my head? Because there's always like reasoning behind it. I said, and then I wanted to know, because I haven't had a chance yet to say, what were these codes that I was getting? What are those? And then, and then I actually, like, after I had come back like that Monday, it feels like either that Monday or Tuesday, I had gotten like punched in the ribs. It was like, and I was like, ow, you know, kind of one of those moments. And I was like, wow, what was that? And so I didn't really, so I, again, feel these physical energies around me and don't necessarily like immediately get what it is. And then I was like, I knew it had to do with the codes, and that's all I knew. Right. And so when I was working with the channelers, I was like, okay, so what is this exactly? And what they said was that, so I got all those codes and I got them. And then feeling off kilter once I got back to the Chicago area was coming from the 5 and 6D energies that we were in Shasta, and then coming back down to 3D energies of Chicago. So even though a lot of Chicago is moving toward 4D, a lot of it still isn't. So, so the lower density energy. So that like feeling, I was walking sideways. I'm like, did I like leave a time zone or what happened? Am I in another dimension? I mean, it felt really weird. Right. And so I was saying, am I in another dimension? But honestly, I kind of was, because I was in 5D, 6D while we were in Shasta. Everything possible that you wanted to happen happened. And then you come back here and it's like, whoa. So then what they said about what happened in Tennessee, Tennessee, when I was in Nashville, was that big conch on my head was that I had picked up so much toxins from the airports, and then doing the clearing in Shasta, and then picking up the new energies to like start to lay codes out, that I was laying codes as I went, but so that my whole body was like, you know, and then once I got back from Tennessee and got home, then I had a chance to like kill it out. So then I dropped codes when I was in Tennessee, picked up codes from Tennessee, from you know, from the mountains and the hills and the, you know, whatever else we were over nearby and on the ground with. And I'm starting to get hot, sweaty talking about this energy work. And then I know, I'm like, I'm perspiring. That's
why I wear my hair up.
Yes. So anyway, so came back to Chicago and then found out. I said, okay, so what was it? Okay, yes, you were getting the new earth codes. That's what those codes were. They wanted you to experience, see it, and have it in your knowing, in your very conscious awareness, not just in your subconscious. And so I said, okay. And then after I came back, I was like, it was late at night, and I was in the bathroom and, you know, getting ready to use the washroom. And then I literally saw those codes that I got in Shasta coming out of my fingers like light. And I was like, oh, I'm like, I'm a magician. Like, you know what I mean? Like that thought came in my mind. I was like, oh, I'm seeing it, you know? And so I was like, all right, all these energies. And then plus we were there in Shasta with the fall equinox. So they said the moon energies, the full moon, the fall equinox, all of that was on purpose, that we needed to be there to get all of those energies, then to like bring it and carry it forward with us. And so anyway, so when I saw the codes coming out of my fingers, I was like, I'm a magician, you know? So it was like one of those moments where you're like, what is happening? You know? So then I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I'm like bringing the codes out, like I'm setting them back out and they're coming into the area. I get it. Like they're coming out to be planted in. Then I found out that when I got punched, like where I felt like I got punched in the rib, that sensation was me anchoring in the codes. I was anchoring them in. So however I do that, I was anchoring in the codes. So I'm like, okay, you guys just keep telling me what I'm doing, because apparently like it's too much for me to get all at once.
Well, I'll tell you, for me, the codes came in and it was if I closed my eyes, there was a black background and there was gold writing. It was just gold writing coming down. And so the fact is I just breathed it through. When we were up on Shasta, it started when I danced that morning, Saturday morning.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was up there dancing too on Saturday.
And so,
for a moment.
And then I started speaking light language, but what the Aztecs were hearing was me speaking Mayan to them.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So the thing was, is that I was thanking them and honoring them for their gifts and their blessings, and they were thanking me for my gifts and my blessings and
Oh,
saging
wow.
me. And it was just amazing. So the fact was, is that it all came together, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences that I've had. And so I just wanted to say thank you for having it. And I'm grateful to Garrett for saying, yeah, hey, Chris, they're having this out of Chester. Why don't you go check it
Oh
out?
my gosh.
But
I'm
see,
grateful to him
what's
too.
even funnier though, we're going to cycle this back around to the Palladians,
Yeah.
is that my galactic mother is White Buffalo Calf Woman.
Oh my God. How
My
beautiful is that?
sister, my sister by her is Garrett.
Oh, wow.
So we are connected and been connected many,
Oh,
many
yes.
lives. And so the fact was, is having all of this, I'm like this lie detector.
Yeah.
So think about me, 40 years in law enforcement. You want to tell it to me one more time? How did that go down?
Right. What happened? Yeah, that's how
So
it
it
happened.
was like, but the one thing that I honor is the children. And so
Oh,
I
yeah.
21 years of my 40 years was dealing with troubled youth. And
Beautiful.
it was helping them understand they don't have to stay in their situations. They have the ability to change, and just
Right.
knowing you have a support system, and it's not your buddy telling you the ways of the world, because that kid has no more clue than you do. And he's just trying to act like he does. And you're listening like a fool.
Right. Right.
So the fact is so that's what I did. I worked the streets of Miami-Dade and Broward County as far as gangs
Mm,
in South Florida. So the
yeah.
fact is that I paid it
And
forward, and Shasta was my completion of that cycle.
wow. That's
And
amazing. Do you know what's funny? That you say that the Miami-Dade area. So they're actually sending me and a couple of my friends who were also in Shasta. I don't know if you remember. Well, Susan was there, and then Joan as well. And so a lot of times I'd be sitting with them, during the drum circles or whatever. And so, and they were really my support team there. They were like holding space
right.
for a lot of like the work that we were doing, but now they put out this thing into our awareness of this conference that was supposed to be happening in New Smyrna Beach. And so we're like, yeah, we're gonna go. And so we signed up, we got our tickets ready, we got our rooms ready, we got our flight plans, our travel, where we're gonna go, what we're gonna do. And then the conference canceled. And so when the conference canceled, I was like,
When was this?
we're already set. Like
How long ago was this, Wendy?
this was like about 3 weeks, maybe not even 3 weeks ago when it canceled, maybe 2 weeks ago it canceled. And so, and we were like, well, we've already got our plans and paid for everything. Like, I kind of still want to go. Like, let's still go. And so they're like, yeah, let's go. And I was like, all right, let's go. And I'm like, it's going to be like how we were in Shasta. Well, then, of course, now the teams are saying, yeah, you're going to go and have fun, but that's mostly what you're going to do is have fun. But guess what? You're also going to be doing some healing work. So you're going to be healing the land. You're going to be healing, we're going to be at St. Augustine's, and we're going to be healing and calling souls, like lost souls. So we're going to be calling lost souls, sending them back up to the light. And that's mostly Joan's work. So she travels in the astral a lot. And while she's in the astral, a lot of times she's like driving a bus, picking up souls who don't know where to go, and like
Right.
helping direct them back to find their way. So I'm like, I guess that's how we're winning the light wars. We're getting all these souls and sending them back up to light. And that makes up light brighter and brighter. So, I guess, but anyway, so they're going to have us do a little bit of sacred ceremony and just pretty much, go and have a good time. But the clearing is definitely going to be there. But also, one thing that they told me that's primary for me to do is because of like all my little plugs that I have, because all of the traveling that I've done is I'm supposed to bring the energies of all these other locations, like to connect them, and that we're going to be opening like a light portal, like a vortex. And then when we open that we're like kind of connecting all these places into this. So we're creating. So it's not there yet, but we will go
Right.
there and create it when we go there. So of course, when you're like learning some of the stuff, I mean, if they had told me I'm doing this, 2 years ago, I'd be like, get out of here. I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't. I don't know how. Today, 100%, I believe and trust and know and honor my ancestors and the work
Mhm.
that they were able to do, that I can do it. that I can do it. I know I have the ability to do it. And it's funny because on my journey, one of my first conversations with when I was at the Crystal Skull Conference 2019 was October. The gal that she and I ended up sitting as friends because I couldn't get my partner to come, my husband, and she couldn't get her husband to come, who was there in Shasta, by the way. But he wouldn't go. And so we just kind of buddied up, and then come to find out that she's like, oh, I have blocks. I can't get rid of them. And I go, I'm a master at dissolving blocks. And she's like, yes, let's work. So we did an energy exchange, and then she assisted me. And so she's like talking to my guide team, and she's like, oh my God, you must have 30 people standing around me right now. And so she was telling me all this stuff, and she goes, she said, I don't know if you know this. She said, but you're an angel. And I go, oh, no, I had no idea. I said, but possibly I suspected it because once I like kind of drew myself and put angel wings on me, and I didn't know why I put angel wings on me. Normally I don't even draw myself, but I was like messing around with like outfits and thinking about, oh, this blouse and this like a little mix match for work. I don't know. I was thinking of my work wardrobe, I guess. And then I drew myself with wings. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then it was like maybe a month or two later when we were having this conversation and then had this healing session, I gave her one. And then when she was doing mine, she said, you're an angel. And I was like, oh no, I didn't know that, but I guess I'm not surprised because, I can think of like, I kept thinking, well, I'm having these dreams. I think the angels are talking to me and, that kind of stuff. And how am I having these precognizant dreams? Like 9/11, when it happened, the tsunamis and the wars, I was dreaming all of that before it happened. Like 9/11, like 8 years before it happened, I was dreaming it. And I was like, okay, these two buildings are coming down and they're white and black striped. And I'm like, I'm not from New York. I had no idea. So, but when I dreamt that, I just documented it, wrote it down, and was like, okay, put that out of my mind because I don't know. And so that experience of like having this dream. So I always felt like I had like connection with angels, right? But and I always knew there was a God because I always knew that there was something more because of what happened to me as a kid. And so anyway, so she goes, and then she goes, well, can I tell her? Am I allowed to tell her? And so she's like having this conversation with them. And then they said, yes, you can tell her. And she said, well, actually, you're an archangel. And I went, I'm a what? I'm like, okay, that's great. And I just couldn't wrap my mind around it because as an archangel, you grow up in Catholicism and you're like, oh, those are the like, woo, those are the really big angels, archangels. So, it took me a few months to really like tap into that. But now she wouldn't tell me who I was as an archangel, only that I was. And so I still had to continue soul searching, going on, a lot of meditations, a lot of reading and writing. And then I was doing a lot of channel writing, but I always had done that. I just didn't really understand that I was automatic writing. But I have done it since I used to, when I was, I don't know, probably since my 16, 17, I would journal. I've got books and books and books and books of journals. So, but anyway, a lot of it was like just kind of me like writing like my experience of the day and stuff that was bugging me and, that kind of stuff. But every now and then I would find stuff and next thing I'd be like in love Jesus. And I'd be like, wait, what? I'm not Jesus. Like, what am I writing? That kind of stuff. So yeah, so I was connecting in with the divine. And then a lot of times I'd have stuff that was like, I am that I am. And so it, and so it is like that kind of stuff. And I'm like, what am I writing? So, but I had no clue then. But once I found out that I was Archangel Raziel, then I was like, okay, so apparently I have a few gifts under my belt. I don't know what I can do yet, but so now I'm on a discovery process. And that started right around 2019 and forward. And then it started just happening faster and faster and faster and faster. And I remember working with Garrett on with light language as my light language. So I knew it was there and I was dreaming in light language. And like you said about the golden rain coming down. So Gina and I, so she's the one that worked with me the first time to tell me that I was an archangel. And so she and I had reconnected at Shasta and then we're working afterwards. And she goes, they've got some more stuff for you. She said, let's meet. And so she and I had some more work that we were doing now that we were at this stage. And so she told me that she goes, you have a big screen in front of your third eye, like you put it there. And she goes, you're handing it over to the giants there. She goes, she didn't say the giants. She said a really big guy. And I go, oh, he's a giant of Agartha. And I was like, where'd that come from? Like I just knew what it was. And she's like, well,
Right.
are you seeing? Are you seeing? I'm like, I'm not. She said, well, it's a new tool. Like you have to figure it out, because I was seeing, but I always explained like it was like looking through a screen. Like I could see, but it wasn't clear. Like it was like looking through a screen, literally. And she said the screen was almost like it was like a trifold, like, you know, when you go to change behind a screen. She said it was like that. She said, so that now it's gone. So, and she's like, your third eye is open, but apparently I had the screen there so that I wouldn't know stuff until it was time to know it. I guess that's how that all goes. So then, so anyway, so she said all these codes were coming down like rain, these golden codes of light language. She said it's universal light language, and that you need to bring that so that while you go to do the work in Florida, you're ready to go. And then a day later, literally the next day, I was talking with a friend of mine who's a psychic, and we hadn't caught up in like, Jesus, it feels like a year since we've talked. I mean, we were always texting, but not talking. And so anyway, so we were talking. And so I was telling him about going to Florida, and he goes, oh, he goes, hang on, hang on. He goes, there's a giant galactic skull the size of a planet coming in to give you codes. And I'm like, what? So I already knew that I was connected with the galactic skulls, because they had put me in with Ra. They said that they Ra, a galactic skull named Ra, merged with me and is like in my being. And so I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense that I would be working with galactic skulls again. And so this galactic crystal skull, the size of a planet, is how it was described to me, had given me all these light codes, and that those were going to be like brought with me as well, so that when I got to Florida, that work would be done. So I'm getting universal codes and then galactic crystal codes. So I'm like, so I'm thinking, okay, I'm pretty tired. I'm like napping all the time. Like for a couple days, I was like, man, I just need to lay down. Like for instead of lunch, I'm going to go grab a nap, you know, kind of thing. And so, and then, but I was fine. Like I was like, okay, I got my nap and I'm good to go. And so then it was a few days after that when they're like, when I was like, shouldn't I be like really wiped out because I just got all these downloads? And usually that happens, you're just like, like you're like worthless for a week. And they said, oh, no, you're built for that. I was like, okay.
And it amplified it at Shasta. It absolutely amplified it. The owl spirit followed me home.
Oh, wow. I
I
actually have it. I don't know if it's down here with my other feathers, because they're always giving me feathers. But no, the owl, I did have an owl spirit that was given to me. I found it at Shasta coming out of the cave. So, and I put it in my pocket and I brought it home, but that's not this one. But this one has like, if you look at this, like this little blue hint of the feather. Oh yeah, you got, yep. I have a bucket of feathers. What do you have though? Oh, maybe that's your.
It's my green screen in the back, but these are bighorn owl feathers. And
yeah.
I made the fan, and this is buffalo hide, and then the four directions.
I should be looking around my property in the neighborhood for the bighorn owl feathers, because, and I should check the feathers I already have, because I may already have them, because there's an owl that literally outside my window right here, and in this big elm tree, just literally outside my window, probably I'd say maybe 20 feet away from where I'm sitting literally right now. There's a couple of bighorn owls that come, and actually I posted them from the other side of my property when they flew over to my neighbor's tree. But they will come out there and they will hoot, and I will stand outside and hoot with them. So I don't know what we're talking about, but we're having some kind of a communication that, you know, I let them know that I'm aware and send them love and light, and, you know, give them my support. And maybe that's the same thing they're telling me, but I don't know. I don't have animal communication like that yet.
Well, it reactivated in Pluto's cave, and I'm eternally grateful. But when we took off from Sacramento, we drove back down, and we took off. And as we're going through the clouds, I could see the owl in the clouds.
Oh my God.
And then as we landed in Denver, I saw the owls and the aliens in the clouds. And then when we took off from Denver and we landed, they were in the clouds. And when we landed in Nashville, it was clear because the full moon was clear. But you could just see there was something, a silhouette on the moon, because I took a picture of it.
That they have you going from Nashville to Shasta, and then I went from Shasta to Nashville. I find that synchronized.
Well, the thing was, is I knew you had a wedding, but I didn't know it was in Nashville.
Yeah.
I'm an hour outside of Nashville, so it was,
God.
you know, So, but the reason why I asked you is when we're going to go to that conference, I was supposed to go to a conference 3 weeks ago and nobody told me it had been canceled. I made the arrangements, the flying, the hotel, drove to Nashville, flew from Nashville down to Tampa, St. Pete, got there, took an Uber, got to the hotel. I'm exhausted. And after I ate dinner, I said, and it was like, it was canceled and nobody had notified me. So it was about the same time. So I started doing light language. I started doing all of the energy work that would go with the, not being there. And then I called my husband. I said, "Hey, Houston, we've got a problem, guess what? So anyway, so needless to say, that's all been worked out, but it's all been about the energy work of Florida. Is why I'm bringing this up. And the reason and the canceling of things, I think, was because of the energy down there. But I ended up going to the beach at 4:00 in the morning and it was
They have us going
raining.
at night.
It was raining and I was the only one on the beach. I mean, at 4, thank God I was the only one on the beach, but I was doing healings in the water. And 2 weeks before that, I was in Clearwater. And I took a picture and I put on my Facebook page, but I was walking just, probably shin tall, high water and it's coming. And there's this little school of barracudas. They're real small. And they're in front of me and they're just flowing like this in front of me. They're not taking off. They're not trying to get away from me. They're just showing me the path to walk, even though they could have bit me if they wanted to, they didn't. And so I took a video of that and it was just amazing. And they were like 2 feet in front of me. So I was just following them and I like left the whole group from that other seminar that I was at and left them back there probably 200 yards back behind me. And they're screaming my name, trying to get me. And I'm just so preoccupied with following the fish. So I get it. But Florida has a lot of density right now. And people sending all kinds of negative down there. And so there was a lot of energy work that had to be done. So I kind of find it interesting that you're going.
I know, right? They pitched you out there and now they're pitching us out there. Because like I said, the three of us were like, we've already got everything set. I'm like, I still want to go. Like I feel like I still want to go. And they were getting the same thing that, they still wanted to go too. And so I'm like, I just feel like it's just going to be a lot of fun. And so with our joy, our childlike joy that we're going to be bringing, that's really going to bring the light in there. And the three of us, I guess, have each of our own unique abilities because one is a seraphim and the other is a fractal of, so we're fractals, right? As we've had our multiple lives and our connections, and another is a fractal of Archangel Metatron. So so we're all uniquely putting our whatevers together, and with this this power of 3, we're like a super triangle. And kind of how they're telling us that that we're connecting as these points of light, and we're just this solid foundation for what needs to be done. So, okay. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
I'm so grateful that you're here and we've had this conversation because there's not enough people speaking about the collective and what needs to be done and the people that are doing things behind the scenes. So I'm grateful and thankful that you came today and it's been amazing. But I have to tell you, I have 2 dragons. One is a white royal dragon from the Palladians. The other one is Monte, and she's the mother of all dragons from Mars. So the fact is so working with the dragons while we were at Shasta was amazing. Going into the caves and they were there with me. Some guy came running past us and he's like, "I'm the keeper of the cave." And someone said there was damage. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. I just, I just said, okay. So he goes running in there and he's panicked. And I'm thinking, if you are truly connected to this cave, you would feel this cave is secure. This cave is okay. This cave is protected.
Yeah.
And so he came back out and he goes, "Oh no, it's good. And whatever you do, don't ever tell anybody what to do or not to do." And I said, "Sir, I have never done that in 45 years. I'm surely not going to start today.
Right.
I don't know who he was. He
funny.
showed up and he was gone just as fast.
We couldn't, that's so crazy. Now, we couldn't find the cave. They had us going in all kind of different directions. We, for about 2 hours, while everybody was down in the cave and like spending time, we were on top wandering around in circles. And we kept coming to this fairy ring. And I was like, this is a fairy ring. And my girlfriends were like, oh, I'm taking pictures. I'm like, I don't feel like I need to take pictures. Like, I feel like I shouldn't. Like, I feel like it's not my place to take pictures of this fairy ring. I said, but it's very clear. And so we ended up, we go another path and we come back. There was the fairy ring. And so the fairies kept like, it was like they were playing with us. But at the same time,
they don't do that. Come on. They don't do that.
People down in the cave already and working with the dragons. And so the healing was happening there. They needed us to be on top. So it was happening at different levels that day. And so we just laughed about it. And we were like, well, apparently we needed to do the work up here. And then we did eventually, of course, get to the cave. And then I did see how dark and rough it was. I'm like, I'm not really being called to like go back into the cave. So I'm like, I'm just going to sit out here and listen to the drumming and enjoy and throw my energy there. And then afterwards, then, I came out, and then that's when we were waiting for the full moon to come up, and we were standing outside in the, what would, I guess would be the parking lot, but there was no, no up beam to, take a light down on me. So I was like, yeah, that's a ship, honey. Because my husband was like, well, that's a flash. And I'm like, a flash from where? The sky?
Yeah, well, it could be. Absolutely could be.
So, yeah, and that's totally what it. Yeah, that's totally what it was.
So,
but if you don't mind, I'd love to do a light language blessing for you. And
absolutely. Feel free. Feel free.
They just will bring it in, and I hear the dragons want to speak, but we'll see if I let them in. Because it always hurts my throat, and they know that. But I hear them saying, and we want to speak too. Aka oyana nara ka iro I chikira pa kuroyana nara ta iro to ira hama hoira kiara pa oyanyara ta ira ki akatoyana ma ati kiriana iro turo ti akapoyara hi apa ianyara ta ira ti oyanyara pa oira pa oyanyaiti ahoyana nara ta ia chikira ta ka amnyora ta anyara ta oira pa Namaste and blessings.
Namaste.
Pleiadians. Pleiadian Collective wanting to come and bring blessings to our brothers and sisters. Thank you for having open hearts, open minds, and awareness to us. And they're just giving it to me in my heart right now. Opening to us to our awareness. We thank you. We're sending you these tones. The tones are additional clearing for yourselves, for your causal, physical, and auric fields. The overtoning is assisting with your dimensional bodies, and that sound frequency was to assist with clearing the older, denser energies from prior lifetimes. And that's the messages I'm getting from that. So usually when I channel, it'll all come in as like packets, and then I then they'll like empty the packets out into my cognizance. And so then I have to like work through like what I'm hearing them saying as it's like unpacking. So think of it as a zip file. They give it to me as a zip file. So it all comes at once. And sometimes it's funny because, and I don't know if this happens to you, sometimes they'll give me a few words and then I'll speak, and then a few words and then I speak. And so, I mean, it's a variety of how they want to come. But
the dragons do want to come through, and they have a message for you.
Oh, yes. Please share.
Oh, ai. Yaha seo kotoro mohone tahi. Ai so mochi atari namaha. Betero lolo lo mohona icheo katara seo shashina maha. You are at such a high level. We can fly above you, but we can't speak at your tone. Ai. Kore lahai. We're clearing your path. We're clearing away the debris of the 3D dimension. Aichio katahana hamasaseo koye shahadeo. Allow Mother Earth to come through you and bless your body. Allow the warmth of her feet mix with the fire of our breaths and clean to prepare you for what your next step is. Ai cheokotara mosai. Naneo mohore laleo kotora sasaho moshahana. Nai cheokotara sai. Isis is coming through in the fire. Joy tatara mohone kasasaseo. Teachio katara saseo. She's the one of 10,000 names. You are her child, her sister, her daughter, her mother. Aichio katara saseo namai. They're done.
Wow. Isn't that beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so
Woo-hoo.
very much. I'm
They
just
when you
so
said you
impressed.
well, when you said, well, I don't know if I'm going to let him come through. He says she will.
Oh, to you that you will. Well, I just didn't want to hog all of it and like.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine.
Because it will just. I mean, once they realize I'm channeling, they will just like beans will like line up and be like, my turn, my turn, my turn, and I can sense it and feel it, and so I'm like, oh, here they come.
I get the same. I channel the Galactic 12. I work
Beautiful.
really strong with Gabriel, Cerebus Bay, Lady Naya, Kuan Yin.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, we need
So
to have more one-on-one conversations, my friend.
yes, we do. We do. But the thing is I wanted to share our experiences of Shasta. I wanted to get my clients or my customers on this podcast to know who Wendy
Yes.
Napolitano is and what she's capable of, because there's so many of us that exist that nobody know about.
Right. And you know what? They're telling me we're supposed to be going back again next year. So
But it depends when, because I'm already, well, here's the thing that I found I was channeled to do at Pluto's Cave. Was a Lemurian celebration in Maui in March at the spring equinox.
Yeah.
And then a vortex in Sedona at the fall equinox in Sedona, Arizona next year. And so for the next couple years, I'm going to be traveling, doing hybrid events, virtual and in-person events when allowed, and go to all the chakras of the planet and the gatekeepers.
Yep.
And so that's what I'm being called.
Is Ireland
actually Stonehenge is one of them.
Stonehenge. Yep. Glastonbury has been, so they've given me, well, aside from Florida, they've given me like 4, but Sedona is actually one of them too. But I've been there back and forth, but never doing like healing or sacred work, right? Or the intention. It's always been like, oh, it's a golf outing or, this kind of thing or whatever. And so, but they've given me Florida, Shasta, Ireland, and Glastonbury. So those are like the 4, like the names.
Where's Bostonbury?
It's in England. So,
okay.
So yeah. So Stonehenge is like they. So yeah, I would be totally interested in like maybe talking about what we can do, because I have friends who are in England as well and in the neighborhood, and also have gifts similar to what we have. So it would be beautiful to like get those pieces together. So I feel like they're kind of like putting They keep telling me like slow down, don't get ahead of yourself, like one step at a time. Like, yes, okay, these things are going to be on your calendar, but right now focus on Florida. And then after Florida, because they're like, they don't want to give me anything beyond Florida until after Florida. So I'm like, okay, fine, I will wait it out.
Well, I've done a lot of research. I mean, when they said that, they're the ones that educated me on Shasta being the root chakra of the planet.
Yeah.
And that's how old it is. It's the root, it's the base, it's the foundation. And so then I said, okay. And then all of a sudden,
the
Maui came.
are still there in the mountain. And so I get the feeling that we may end up running accidentally into some of them, because we're going to, the next time we go, it's going to be more like how you were, like stop here, stop here, stop here. It's kind of going to be like what we're doing in Florida. And I have a feeling that the reason they're having us do this in Florida is so that we'll get that idea to do that when we go to other locations like Shasta and Sedona, that we're not just like in one spot, that we'll be have these like little smaller communities of traveling groups to do a more closely connected, a more one-on-one, like, like when you and Marilee were running out and we were running out, and Marilee and I, and when we all went and had dinner, and so in different groups we're going, and like when then we'd see them, we'd be like, oh hey, that's our group too, and like hi, we'd wave across the tables, kind of thing. So it'll be more intimate with more cross sharing, cross sharing.
But just know that after Maui, I'm being guided to go to Peru, to Lake Titicaca.
That's another one that they've been telling me. That's another one. I have notes and notes on Peru.
So,
I need to go to
Peru. So that would be the next one. And after that is Ayers Rock in Australia.
Well, yeah, that's another one. There's Australia.
And then let's talk the pyramids. The Great Pyramids is actually a chakra. And then the only one that's transitional, and then you've got Stonehenge, and then you have the third eye, which right now is at Stonehenge also, but the third eye moves around. And so the thing is sometimes it's in Iceland, and sometimes it's in Greenland, and sometimes it's over in Siberia. And then there's a chakra in Russia.
Yeah.
And so those being the 7, and then they're gatekeepers, and which I find that the gatekeepers are actually the other 5 chakras that were taken away when Atlantis was destroyed.
Oh, wow. Well, I was part of the destruction of Atlantis. I was part of it. And so I feel like a lot of the work that is my contract to do is because of that. Because, I mean, when, you have all these priestesses and priest lives and past lives, we were part of that. And so for me, coming from Atlantis and then to Lemuria, I ended up being one of the destroyers of Lemuria, where it shifted and broke apart because we were protecting the energies. We had to. It was let them get it or destroy it, and we had to
abuse it. I get abuse it, because they were starting to abuse. Some of the priests were starting to abuse it and drawing attention to it. So I had heard the same thing, but they didn't realize that when they took out Atlantis, it was going to affect Lemuria so much.
Yeah. So so there's lots. There's so much. We can just be on this. We can just be talking for 3 more hours.
We could. Thank you so much. I honor you. I'm grateful that you had that. I'm grateful I was guided to be there, and I had so much fun. And I had never spoken publicly in my life than I did there. And you were I can have my brother edit it out. It's like, no, I'm me now. Remember?
Yep, I sure
and
do.
So
and actually,
it was
interesting. I was because I write light language too. And the other day I was listening because I was going back through, and some of the sound quality is just really crappy. And I'm like, oh man. So the disadvantage that my brother is currently in Spain and not local, so that he would have gone on the trip, done the recording and video and editing and everything. And so I feel like in the future I have to plan that out a little bit more thoroughly to have somebody actually be a videographer for me.
Right.
But it's interesting, when I was rewatching Marilee's her introduction, one thing that she kept saying was trust the process. And I was watching that yesterday But on the 4th of November, let's see if you can see this, the 4th of
Yeah.
November, I wrote,
Oh,
just
love
trust
it.
the process. And then here's my light language. And it's talking about manifesting and putting in the vortex, and the fairies helping me along with this, with the work. It says, bring the general or idea of request from the matrix into focus, manifest your desires. And then it's telling me there's so many helping me that I couldn't possibly know. There's so many aspects of yourself as you learn new aspects of your wisdom, and more, I can't even read my own writing. More trust comes, letting go. Have you seen it? It's like, it's
Yeah,
like
I see it. I see it.
um, as you learn new, I always said I should have been a doctor. Well, I'm a healer, so I guess there's that. More that comes, letting go of any doubts of your spiritual life's work will bounce into action at a new level. Stay in your greatest childlike joy. The fairies will help your blooms to grow. And then they gave me this little bit of artwork down here.
I love it. I love it.
And then
The
it's all
squid. Yeah.
languages in it. Yeah. So, thank you. So yeah, so it's, it's a, and of course, my whole book is full of light language. There's just like page and page and page and page and page after it. So
I can speak it. I can't write it. I can see it. I can read it, but I can't draw it. I don't have that ability.
We're going to have to do just some like FaceTime calls or something, or messenger calls, and like let me go through some of like my books, because it would be nice. Because usually what they give me is, they like, when I first started working with it, they were just like giving me so much, and then I would just get some keywords, and so the keywords would be there, and that would be like, oh, that's good enough. But then they had me kind of do like the ABCs of like, of like 5 or 6 different galactics languages, and they're all like, they have a different aspect, but they do mostly have me writing Palladian. With Palladian, it almost looks like just scribbles and like crazy art, and it's very multidimensional. It's not just like one plane, it's like multiple planes, which is why they have me like do colors, and but it looks like a child scribbles is what it looks like, when like if you're not really looking at it and don't understand what you're looking at.
Right.
Sometimes I'm like, what are you guys having me draw? But
Wendy, I can't thank you. I can't thank you enough. I'm so honored and grateful for you to be here. Thank you so much. Hold on just one second.
Yes.
It takes a special kind of individual to dream their thoughts and ideas and turn them into their reality. Wendy Napolitano has done that. She stepped past her fears, stayed her course, and had the courage to do the follow through to the end. Wendy Napolitano, you've championed yourself. Now we know who you've become. Thank you for sharing your ideas, your thoughts, your dreams, and your gifts with us today. Thank you, everyone.